Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Community FC, where I've got another episode of My Club coming for you, the show where we talk about the clubs of people around and supporters and why they support their clubs, as we all like to get a little bit of info in clubs that you might not support or just interested in other clubs that you've heard about. So we've got a very special guest on today, so welcome, Jamie.
Hello, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. How are you?
All good, thank you. All the better for seeing you.
Oh, he's so sweet. He's trying to come on more clearly. So I think we can all tell by now the shirt that he's wearing, but in case for audio listeners and everything like that, we're going to be talking about Chelsea or the Blues. So
probably much to everybody's dismay. Everyone hates us.
I mean, at the moment, you say that, but that's one of the things I'm really interested about as well, because there's certain groups that hate teams more, and then there's certain teams that are just universally hated more for some reason. And but that's also some of the fun of getting into this series and to learn a little bit more about it. But yeah, so Chelsea it is, and unfortunately, unfortunately, it was very fortunate. I had the pleasure of going to uni with Jamie, so we talked about football a lot, but I had to suffer a lot of the Chelsea talk and all the bants that come along with it. So anyway, we'll crack on with the episode. So like the last episode of My Club, I've kind of got a list of questions to go through and just get some information about your club. But again, I'm just here to like guide it. By all means, cut in. This is your show, and I want that to be the kind of thing. I want there to be you are telling supporters how it is, other fans, other Chelsea fans, like whatever you think. I just want to get your opinion on it. Is that all good?
That's all good. I'm not sure it's wise for me to be spewing my opinion for however long, so that's brave from you, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. And do you know what? We'll probably end up doubling up on some clubs, so it'll be interesting to get some maybe different generations and different perspectives on it as well. But anyway, we'll kick off. So I think the easiest one I normally start with is, so how long have you supported Chelsea for?
Since I was born. It's pretty much been instilled into me for my entire life. I'm 26, so yeah, 26 years, I guess, since 95.
And that's interesting. That's one thing I was saying like last week. It's I love hearing why people support their clubs, but also like how long and all those kind of fun stories and stuff. So as I said, yeah, it's a family thing for you, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, well, my dad is actually from Glasgow. He was a boyhood Rangers fan to start with, and Rangers and Chelsea back in the day, especially, they were kind of linked clubs. So if you supported Rangers, your English team would be Chelsea, vice versa. And it's kind of similar with Liverpool and Celtic. Like back in the day, if you supported Liverpool or if you supported Celtic, you'd support the other side as well, because of the large sort of Irish fan base that they've got. But yeah, it was just a thing. Back in the day, Rangers and Chelsea linked clubs. In fact, the first football team my dad played for, it was like a street team rather than like a Sunday team. They had like street teams and stuff back then. So all the boys in the street would play like every Sunday. The first strip they had was a Chelsea strip. So like the first non-Rangers strip that my dad had was Chelsea. And then he just sort of brought that into us from an early age, really. I've got two brothers, all of us Chelsea fans, Chelsea and Rangers. It's just the way it's always been. So I used to get a lot of jibes when I was younger, actually, because like I'd have Chelsea shirts. Like I've got pictures of me as a baby and as a kid in Chelsea shirts and stuff like that. But when the takeover happened, it's actually quite topical of what's going on with Newcastle right now. When the takeover, that was like the first of its kind, like the first big takeover for a British club. And obviously then success came and stuff like that. And then every time I was seen in a Chelsea shirt, or if someone asked me who I supported, I was only like, bear in mind, I was only like 10 at the time, right? I'd answer with Chelsea, and it'd be like, oh, Glory Hunter. I'd get that from United fans who live in London, and it's like, how are you calling me a glory hunter? I didn't ask for it. I was born into it. I've just been fortunate. But I see why they'd say it, really, because at that time, I guess similarly to how the Newcastle takeover now, no one could really compete with the kind of money that the owners bought. So
yeah,
I understand it, but
that's a really interesting story that you've told, because I think there'll be a lot of people or listeners out there that might not know that kind of old link between Scottish clubs and English clubs as well. And you see that with today's markets, more like championship clubs and English clubs, or an MLS side with a connection to a Premier League side or anything like that. So that's a really fun story. But I also really like that you've touched on a point that no matter what generation you're from, there's always going to be a club of plastic fans or glory hunters and stuff. And that's a really interesting one as well, because you're like, yeah, you were, you were born into it. That's your family club, and it is what it is. And it's not your fault that Roman Abramovich took over and you got loads and loads of money and success came on the back of that. Just the same way as, Liverpool or United fans or whatever, as you said, like maybe in the local area and stuff growing up, lots of them would have been labeled as the plastic fan or the glory hunter and stuff like that as well. And again, we've seen that with City fans, and as you very rightly pointed out, it will be really interesting to see the Newcastle. And I know, in some ways, again, I'm trying we won't go too much off topic here from the episode, but I know so many Newcastle fans that it's almost nice because they've had to deal with so much crap for the last however many years, and so a little bit of hope at the end of the tunnel for them might be a club that's a little bit more deserving than some of the other ones.
Yeah, literally. I mean, I was going to say that I've seen us be shit as well in my lifetime, but I mean, we were prior to the takeover in my lifetime. I was born in '95. Takeover happened in '03. So before then, we were kind of in and around the top four for pretty much my entire lifetime, and a few trophies here and there. Nothing to obviously the likes of what it is now for Chelsea or what it has been for the past 20 or so years. But yeah, I guess I haven't really had the turmoil of the Newcastle fans have recently.
Yeah, but also it's again it's something to highlight on the show, and I'm sure I'll little anecdotes and stuff here and there on everything you say. But it's what you're used to. It's success is a different thing for generations that you're born in. It's success is a different thing of that you can be a top four club but be in bad times, and you can also be a relegation club that's doing really well. It's one of those things where depending your club stature, good or bad is relative to your club size and stuff like that. So it's an interesting one. So the next one, I mean, I did jump around last week. I've got similar notes up, but I think I'll just go down a standard list because I like to see some of the fun ones and stuff. And this is kind of the nice one. So do you have a all-time favorite player for Chelsea, or players if you're on the fence?
The thing I find difficult with this question is because when the takeover happened, a lot of our success came in quite a condensed period. So when you ask for a favourite player, majority of them played together. Yep. So it's really hard to pick one. So you could probably throw however many players under one umbrella, like Lampard, Terry, Drogba, Ashley Cole, Petr Cech, Ivanovic. You could throw all those players. They all played together. They played in the same side, winning the same trophies.
Yeah.
But I think the player that has given me the most joy throughout my lifetime has got to be Drogba. Didier Drogba, what he brought to the side, like the amount of trophies that his goals won us, the amount of points in the league his goals won us. I know he wasn't the most prolific of goal scorers. I think he only had 2 seasons where he reached 20 goals, I think, in the 8 seasons that he played for us.
Yep.
Which obviously, his numbers weren't bad by any means, but he wasn't like the likes of a Harry Kane or a Shearer or, players that are bagging in 30 goals a season. But it's the importance of those goals that he scored. Obviously, we go back to the final in Munich, the header to tie it up, and then the penalty, and then however many finals you want to list. There are so many finals that man scored in. It is an absolute joke. I think in terms of big game players, I think him and probably Ronaldo are
Benzema, maybe,
Benzema, of course, but just if you think of them off the bat, Ronaldo, Drogba, they are
100%, and also from an opposition of Drogba, the monster that he was. It wasn't just his goals, as you said. It was him. He provided so much. Just even the amount of defensive resource that he took up for people marking him and stuff gave the rest of that team opportunity, gave them space, gave them whatever. So it's not just his numbers that speak for it. He was just an absolute monster wherever he was on the pitch and just demanded that respect.
Absolutely. His best season was the 09-10 season. We won the league under Ancelotti, and that's probably to this day still the best football I think I've ever seen Chelsea play in that season. It was just incredible. The amount of goals we scored. We'd blowing teams away 7-8-0 week in, week out. And Drogba was away for the African Cup of Nations. I think he had a little injury as well that season. So I think he played 32 games, scored 29 league goals, and then I can't remember how many assists he got. But he was phenomenal that season. He was unbelievable that season. But around him, the players that we had, like Joe Cole, Florent Malouda had the season of his life. Florent Malouda was incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. That team was just so good to watch. Lampard scored 22 league goals from midfield. I mean, that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, outrageous numbers.
Well, actually, I say it doesn't happen anymore. Bruno Fernandes did pretty well last season for United.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just, I think, going back to the original question, I think it would have to be Drogba. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to watch many incredible players for Chelsea, but he was the one, because I think I had him for a period of time growing up where it was just, I don't know, what he gave me as a fan, what he gave so many other Chelsea fans, just, it's quite unique. I just don't think another player has done what he's done.
Yeah, and also from the same as any watchers or listeners from last week, I wanted to bring up one other point because I think it's important to talk about them on and off the pitch as well. But just like we talked about Matt Le Tissier last week and how he was a really nice guy, is a really nice guy and all that stuff. I mean, Drogba, there's some incredible stories, stopping a war, doing things like that, off the pitch. He has done absolute bits as well. So what a human being.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, he's idolised in Ivory Coast. There were so many things named after him. They've got like a beer named after him. There's a river Drogba. I think there's a village named Drogba. There's so many things named after him. He is like an icon, like big time.
And deservedly so from that stuff. And the only thing which slightly hurts me in your conversation that you just talked about is the season that you talked about winning, taking over, was just when we were kind of petering out from United because we were that 07, 08, 09, the dominating force, and then it went the other way. I actually am really surprised as well. Like I thought that Drogba potentially could be the player that you'd pick, but I was almost sure there'd be a Hazard sneaking in there ever so slightly. I was like, it would have been hard, I know.
I think Hazard is my favourite ever Chelsea player to watch. I think he's the best player I've ever seen ability-wise at Chelsea. He was just unbelievable. Like that spell he had, and people say he had a season off, which he did have a season off. He kind of down tools. I think there was a bit going on with the manager at the time, a manager that both of us have had the pleasure of watching our teams under, and it can be brilliant, but it can also be pretty tough at times.
It's 50-50,
I'm not going to badmouth him. I still love the guy for what he did for us, Mourinho. But Hazard, at that time, he was in a league of his own. I think.
Yeah.
He'd be that kind of player, could turn the game like that. No one on the pitch at any one time had the ability to do what he could do. If he was on it, and it was so good to watch. So good to watch for so many years.
He was incredible to watch. His stats speak for themselves, and they're still outrageous numbers for what he brought. And for that generation that he was there, again, it is that talisman player. You're talking, he was the equivalent of Salah is today for the Premier League and for Liverpool right then. So it's That's
an interesting point, because his stats weren't bad by any means. His stats were not bad, considering he was never an out-and-out goal scorer. It was clear that was never his job. But the amount of goals he scored were actually pretty impressive. And in big games in the Premier League, he was always he was brilliant. He sometimes in the Champions League he could go missing. That was probably my only gripe around him. So I feel there were seasons we could have won it with him spearheading it, but there were a few games where he just didn't really turn up, or teams would do a job on him, like Ander Herrera did
what
that
a
time.
Game.
That
was actually tactical genius.
Everywhere.
Literally, the instructions work: follow him, just stay with him, and it worked to a T. Shut you down, shut him down, shut the game down, and it was
And this is I think it's interesting you bring up Salah there, because Mohamed Salah, what he's doing right now is unbelievable. On the back, two weeks in a row, and he scored 2 worldy solo goals. And he's doing it week in, week out. He is an incredible player, and his numbers are so impressive. It's scary what he is doing numbers wise. Having said that, I feel like you probably sensed there was a but coming. It seems to be a topic of debate right now: Hazard in his prime versus Salah in his prime. For me, in terms of who the better player is, it's night and day. I think Hazard has so much more to his game than Mohamed Salah does. Salah, if you took his goals away, I think we'd be seeing a very different player. But obviously, that's kind of a pointless thing to say, because he's there for the goals. That is what he does. I do think right now is the best I've ever seen Mohamed Salah. I think he has added so much to his game.
Definitely. This season, he's just on fire.
I'm a massive fan of his. But looking at their profiles, I just feel like Hazard had so much more to his game, and there was so much more than just goals in football. And I think that's what people sort of get distracted by, is they'll look at the stats. So people nowadays look at the stats, but Salah scored more goals, therefore he's a better player. It doesn't really work like that. There's a reason. You watch them play. Whenever Hazard had the ball, doesn't matter who he was playing against, he was doubled up on every single time he had the ball. There were so many players around him. People have sort of started wising up to Salah now.
Yeah.
But Salah doesn't have that natural ability with the ball, could turn the game like that. Doesn't have that Hazard did at Chelsea. But I will say Salah is way more ruthless in front of goal. He knows he doesn't need to be, let's say he doesn't need to be an 8 out of 10, he doesn't need to be a 10 out of 10 in the game. He could be quiet, maybe not have a chance, and then a chance to fall his way, he'll tuck it in. Like, that's just what he does. He scores goals. Yeah. And yeah, credit to him. He's been absolutely phenomenal. And this isn't Salah slander whatsoever. I really, really like him, really rate him as a player. You'd be mad not to. Yeah. I just think Hazard had, in his prime, untouchable.
Absolutely. And again, this is a forum that you're allowed to express your opinion, and I think there's a really interesting dynamic here. I'm not going to start this at all, won't get into this, otherwise it will be the whole podcast and it'll be 5 hours long. But at uni, you're going to probably see the other lad from uni who's very much in the football group that we still chat to all the time, who's a Liverpool fan. But can you imagine us at uni, or just in general, the amount of times we had the Scholes Gerrard Lampard debate? We're not going to get into it, but I'm just saying, like, you can voice your opinion. Your club sometimes can obviously make you a little bit biased or other stuff, but like, I think the great thing about us was that we always saw each other's opinions and points of view, and why one player was better for one aspect. And you could never say this player for sure, because you would always say, but what about this? And it is, as you said, it's not all necessarily about goals. Salah does provide a lot of assists as well, which is another quality to his game right now. But yeah, that is valid points. And yeah, Hazard was an incredible player. And as you said, like that team between those generations, it's like when you have those golden generation teams, you could pick anyone, and you can pick multiple people and be like, these are my club legends. Most of the time people go like, oh, my favorite player was who I had on my shirt, or some connection you had with them or stuff. But it is so hard to pick. And eventually I'm probably going to do an episode of my club, and I have a multi answer, which is a split from an all-time, like, I don't know who to pick out of two, but then I'd also follow it up with being a bit cheeky, and I'll give you that if you want to talk about an old player. I would also say, like, a current player, I'd be like, yeah, okay, he's definitely my out and out favorite, but he isn't my all time yet, but he could be in that sense. And again, it's so difficult. So we'll kind of go on from there. So do you have I mean, lots of people do, and I'm sure you will as well. Do you have an all time favorite Chelsea goal?
I think
so many again.
the obvious ones are obviously the goals that won the biggest trophies. The Champions League goals, obviously Kai Havertz last year, which was, I think, really good for him, and obviously really good it won us the trophy, and then obviously Drogba in Munich. But I think I'm going to go with the first goal I remember as a fan. And I mean, I don't mean the first goal I remember, period. I mean the first goal I remember watching and being like, wow, like that is incredible. I was so young at the time. I'm 5 or 6, I think I was. I think it was in the year 2000. I want to say it was 2000 or 2001. And it was a Chelsea-Man United game. Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank scored an absolute thunderbolt.
Yeah.
We drew 3-3. I think it was at Stamford Bridge. We drew 3-3. And it was in the first 5 minutes. The ball sort of came, it was like a deep lofted cross. Tore Andre Flo kept it in. It was just about to go out. He kept it in and he flicked it back, and it was like flying through the air. Hasselbank took it down on the chest of the edge of the box and rifled it into the top corner. And it was so good. It was the first goal I remember seeing, like the first probably world class goal I remember seeing. Obviously, I didn't know what world class was back then. I was just a kid watching football, but I remember seeing it. Like, we were all watching it in the house. It just erupted in there. Everyone was like, I can't believe what I've just watched. It was so good. That's probably my favourite. That's one that kind of sticks with me. I love that goal so much, just because it's such an early memory. It's probably the earliest memory of something amazing. Like, as I was just sort of getting into football.
Yeah, and you know, and this is what I think this is going to be one of my favorite questions, because it's not necessarily because if you're not a fan of the club that's on or the team that's on, you might not be like, oh, I don't want to hear about that player or whatever, which is absolutely fair enough for the rivalries in football. But I love hearing about goals, because most of the time, 99% of the time, you can think of them in your head because they've been memorable for lots of reasons. But I also just love the way you see people tell it as well, because you can see the excitement and the nostalgia in your face thinking about it, and it's that feeling and that you get from watching or hearing about a goal when you're like, this is my favorite goal, and everyone will be like, oh yeah, because that was an absolute thunderbolt, or that piece of skill, or oh my god, that scenario that it came in and stuff. And that's, again, it's the magic and beauty of football, that it's those things that you just don't get, the highs and highs you get. Obviously football is very high and low, and that's just the way it works. So that's one of those things.
That's exactly it. I mean, I didn't really have, sort of touching on what you were saying there, as a kid, I don't think you go through the lows as much, because you don't really, like, not that you don't care, obviously you could be interested in football, but you're a kid, like you could be like, oh, we just lost, but I'm going to go play my PlayStation, or I'm going to go out with my mates. It doesn't really matter.
Seem to hit as hard. When the older you get, the more you seem to sit on it for a bit. And
yeah, it's exactly that. But yeah, that was the first goal that I remember being amazing. It was the first thing that I remember being like, wow. Like, and after that, he was like my childhood hero. That guy, I loved Hasselbank so much as a kid.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a nice story to hear. Well, I mean, it could be the same thing, and absolutely fine if it is. But do you have it's a very broad term, so by all means have a few. We'll talk about things. But do you have like a favourite memory for anything to do with Chelsea, or like could be you've gone to a game, or just something celebrating, or just anything that's been such a impactful thing where you're like that's a. It doesn't have to be, I mean, off to be any favourite, but it's something that was really impactful. That's your club and for you.
Oh, this is it's tough. There are so many, obviously. As I keep saying, the Champions League finals.
Yeah, well, big deal.
I think, yeah, of course it is. I think the natural sort of go-to would be the time you won a trophy, or like, you know, winning the title for the first time in 50 years or whatever. Mm-hmm. But one thing I remember, this, funny enough, actually popped up on Twitter again recently. It was doing the rounds a couple of weeks ago, but we played Liverpool in, I think it was the quarters. I'm pretty sure it was the quarters of the Champions League. We seemed to play them every year for a bit, so it was sort of a 4 or 5 year period where we'd always draw them in the Champions League, and they were always such big games. I don't know if you remember the 4-4 game at Stamford Bridge. It was just, Alex scored a thunderbolt of a free kick. It's crazy. But probably my favourite memory, I would say, a couple of days before that game, not that game, sorry, it was a different game. I think we won 2-1 in the end. Frank Lampard's mum passed away. I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah, I do remember this, yeah.
And before the game, Steven Gerrard came out, a big bouquet of flowers for him. Obviously, they're like mates. They play together for England or whatever.
Yeah, of course.
So that was a nice touch to start with. But then obviously he scores the goal to put us through. He scored the penalty to put us through, and then like took the armband off. It was just such an emotional time. Like, obviously his dad was stood in the stands. That's probably my favourite memory for probably the best reason I can think of. Really, it was just so much respect at that time.
Yeah, I don't think there probably is a better reason than that. Of you know, most people would probably go for, oh, we won a Champions League, or we did. Actually, that's a really nice sentimental moment for how football can be at times a unity of sport, where it's a unified thing where people are like, that's a really tough thing somebody's gone through, and that's and you do see that though, and especially elite sportsmen, extreme scenarios or emotional toil in their life actually sometimes brings the best out of them. You see that a lot when they've had bereavements or lots of things like that have happened, and then they literally have like the best game of their life afterwards, because they channel it, don't they? They put everything they have into it, and they dedicate it, or whatever the circumstances. But yeah, that's a really good pick.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I could have picked, as you said, I could have picked when we won the league title, like one of those times. I could have picked Champions League. I could have picked a game where it's like really high scoring, exciting game. But that to me, that's something that really matters. That is like, because realistically, in the grand scheme of things, obviously football's about winning, but there are things that matter way more than football.
100%.
And I think that was probably one that sticks with me. I remember seeing that. I was quite young at the time, I think I was at school.
Yeah.
And it was just, yeah, it's just a really nice moment, really.
No, definitely. That is that's a very nice one. I think I was quite taken aback, but I was expecting some like absolute screamer or that was my first game or something like that. But that's a really, really good answer. So speaking of like games, did you? I mean, I know you do go to a few games. Like, is that something you do regularly? And I mean, onto that, we can come on to the second question. Like, do you remember your first game? What the game was, or anything like that?
Yeah. So I go nowadays. I go a bit more regularly. Growing up, I came from a background that didn't have the most money, so it was difficult to get to games. Obviously, my parents did what they could. We never went without. It was a good upbringing that I had, but they didn't really have much sort of disposable income to be able to take me, and I understood that. So I started going a bit more later on. My first game was actually not too long ago. My first proper game, because growing up, unless you remember a season ticket holder, it was really hard to buy tickets because it would always sell out, and it would just be, we don't really have the biggest stadium. So my first actual proper game was in the league against Bournemouth in the 17-18 season. So it was fairly recent. Was my first game. I've been quite a few times since then. We got beat 3-0 at home to Bournemouth. That wasn't, left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, but that was good to experience it. I don't really like this sort of narrative of like, unless you go to games week in, week out, you're not a real fan. It's like
100%. And I touched on that last week, and it's a stigma that I'm trying to every week. I think we'll be promoting, because again, last week Rich said the same thing. It was like, football's expensive, and my family didn't have that much money to spend on that stuff. And it's like, absolutely, it's an expensive day out. But also, you've touched on another thing which maybe isn't so much for Southampton like last week, but is very prevalent of me as another big team in no disrespect Southampton, like a top 6 or a top 4 team in England. The membership scheme, as you said, is a whole thing where, Old Trafford is quite a big stadium, 75 odd thousand. But again, you get that membership, which you have to pay for. And I don't know how it is for Chelsea. For United, you can't take anyone else with you unless they have a membership too. You can't buy 2 tickets. You can only buy 1 ticket. So you have to then have 2 memberships on top. And then it's getting there, and it's only 1 game a season, and everything else is, fair enough. It's but behind season tickets, like away game stuff, it's season ticket ballots and stuff like that, because there is so much support. But that is another level of getting to games is difficult.
Yeah. It's not as simple as going on there, first come first serve, buy 4 tickets, you and all your mates go. It's not like that. As you say, it depends on the game. Obviously, they have bans of like the bigger games, right down to like sort of like cup games and stuff like that. Usually for cup games, it's easier to get tickets for. If you're a member, you can buy more than 1 for most cup games, and it depends how the tickets are selling, I guess. But we haven't really seen that lately, because everyone wants to go to games, because stadiums have been shut for a year and a half. So it is difficult. I actually managed to go recently. Funnily enough, I went to see Chelsea Southampton a few weeks ago, 3-1 at home. We were right behind the goal in the red card match that
Rich was fuming about. Yeah, that one.
That was a strange time to be in the stadium, because obviously that's my first experience of like VAR, because it's only come in so recently.
Yeah, of course.
In a stadium, and it was like it was just bizarre, because there were so many VAR incidents in that game. We had 2 goals disallowed, one of which was offside, like fair enough. The other one, I have no idea. Right, for starters, it's not even a foul. It's not even a foul in the build-up. I think the episode you spoke about that. I think I watched that one, and I think is it Rich? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Sorry, we've literally just been speaking about. I'm so bad with names. The Southampton fan. He even said he didn't really think there was much in that.
Yeah.
And it was so far back in the play, like it was literally. Frank Lampard was still in charge when that foul was made. It's actually ridiculous. So yeah, it got a bit spicy.
And does it really? Because the only game I went to recently was a pre-season game, so they didn't have VAR. running at all. But
Mm.
does it really take that? Does it take anything away from it, or is it because it's the almost like delay to celebrate? Is there like a double celebration, or is it more subdued and then
It's difficult. When I'm watching at home, I'm so tentative about celebrating a goal now, because like you just pick up on it and you say, oh, he might be offside. His arm might be offside there. His armpit. Something stupid. But when you're in the stadium and there's like however many thousands
just carnage anyway when you score?
It's exactly. Yeah. And so it was just like massive disappointment every time. So because we were behind the goal, both goals that were disallowed were down the other end. Lukaku was offside for his, but you obviously can't see along the line, so you can't see that everyone celebrated and then the flag went up. And then Werner's one, that one, no flag went up or anything, no foul was given. So like pretty much we were ready to restart the game, and then it was the screen VAR is checking possible foul, and then they show you it. They show you like, but sometimes they show you a tiny little bit of it, and it just went. Honestly, I've never heard a stadium so unhappy decision. Apart from obviously the Southampton fans at the other end, they were pretty happy about that. But
well, that's what I was going to say quickly to interrupt you. Sorry, is that
nice one.
I find it so funny that obviously most people are like not against it, but annoyed how it's going and how slow it takes and stuff like that as well. But I think the funniest thing is that when it goes in their favour, and then you see the fans like going VAR, check it, VAR, or doing the and all that. And I think that's a really funny like little addition to the game at the moment.
Yeah, I think it does. I don't know. I'm for VAR if it's used properly.
And I think we talked about this on the podcast. So again, it's consistency. I think that's pissing everyone off, because we've seen so many tackles or so many decisions with corners and offsides and stuff. And then if it was given the same way every week consistently, we wouldn't have a problem. But because it's not, well, that's where the irritation comes in.
That's exactly it. And it's like, I just don't get it, because you have all this technology and yet referees and officials, they're still making wrong decisions. You're still seeing howlers every week. It's like, how much help do you need to do your job? I just don't get. I
mean, I'm hoping we said before, like there's now refs that are now being full-time VAR refs, and then we will start seeing a new generation of referees that are purely, wholly and solely VAR refs. And that is a whole different topic, which I'm not going to try and get into, because there's a lot of opportunities for people with disabilities and all sorts. So it can be a really good thing. But there will be hopefully more consistency when that comes through. But we are in this kind of transition period to VAR that is getting these mistakes wrong, and we seem to be a better place that we were last year for some things on VAR, like with the speed that it's done, but then seeing more inconsistency. But it's just one of them anyway.
The speed, obviously it has sped up going based on the past few seasons, but that game that I went to, it took ages for them to rule out Werner's goal to start with, and it took ages for them to decide that Ward-Prowse's tackle was a red card. It's like Ward-Prowse was an unlucky one, I thought. I think letter of the law, it probably is a red card, but anyone who's played football is going to make that challenge. You're going to make that challenge, and it's only because you can't not have your studs up sometimes.
Exactly. It is what it is. And we were saying at the time, like we were saying, and that was what was winding Rich up more, is that we were like, at the time I was watching the game at his, and it was like, I was like, yes, it's a soft red, but it's still a red, even if it's soft. Like letter of law, it goes that way. So it's just one of them.
It probably is, but I do feel some sympathy for him there, because anyone would have gone for that.
Yeah, 100%.
He has caught Jorginho. It probably was a little bit of a sore one, but it's football. Anyone would have made that tackle, and it's just one of those. It's one of those things that
exactly it happens. But anyway, so we got really sidetracked there. So going back to so obviously, you went to some of the local, one of the recent games for the Southampton one. Is there any kind of other like memories of going or anything like that, or away days you want to touch on or anything like
that? No, I've not actually had the pleasure of going away with Chelsea at the moment as of yet. The membership, as you say, makes that so hard, especially.
Is it season ticket for you for away ballots and stuff like that? Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah, and there's like a different level. You have to have so many loyalty points to be able to go away as well.
Same as us.
Which I don't dislike because usually the season ticket holders are where all the atmosphere is going to come from.
Yeah, 100%. And you need that. So they're making sure that, I agree with you, they're making sure that the people that are going to the away end are the people that go week in, week out. They're the ones making the noise. And that's, what you expect. It just would be nice if there was a tiny percentage that there was a chance that you could go if you were a non, because if you say you supported a club which isn't as close to you as other ones, like there's a chance that you could go to your local team which maybe isn't the one you support, but it'd be easier for you than a 5-hour travel or whatever. And stuff like that, but it is what it is.
No, exactly. Yeah. So unfortunately, haven't been away with Chelsea yet. Something I'm looking to do this season. My brother's got a few contacts that are season ticket holders, so if there are times they can't go, we'll be going. So hopefully a few more opportunities to go this year. I will be looking to go to a few away games. It's just a little bit more difficult than the home games, that's for sure.
Definitely 100%. And it's exactly that. And it's, as we said at the beginning, going to a game doesn't make you a fan or not. And
exactly.
I've known you're a lifelong Chelsea fan, and very much if we, if you fell over and nicked yourself, I'm pretty sure blue blood would come out, not red blood. So it's one of them. So we've talked. I was going to say, when did you last go? We've been through that. It was the Southampton match. The last kind of ones I've got are the more like speculative ones, shall we say? One of them's we'll get onto now is talking about. So it might be easier for you, might be harder for you. I don't know. I've put down here, where do you see like Chelsea Football Club in 5 to 10 years time? And I know that's a really difficult question to ask, but I'll more put some context to it. So in the sense of like Rich last week was saying, without new ownership, they're going to stay the same. Like they're going to be relegation battle every time and that kind of stuff. Do you think, again, I'm not putting words into your mouth here, you can completely disagree with this. Like, do you think Abramovich is going to stay at the helm, and then so you're going to keep investing and you're kind of going to go for that trajectory which you've kind of had, where you kind of get a good team, build up, inject some money, win a few things, and then when the squad gets a little bit older, you kind of dip for a bit, someone else rises up, and then you kind of rinse and repeat? Or do you see something else happening?
Realistically, I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be more of the same, really. That we've seen over the past 20 or so years, unless Abramovich gets bored and wants to go do something else. But I think we're such a financially stable club now, without being one of the, obviously we're one of the richest clubs in England, but we're by no means, we don't have any of the money that City or Newcastle or any of these other clubs that have had recent takeovers, even United, any of them, we don't have anywhere near that kind of money now. But the way it's run, I think Abramovich and Marina have done a phenomenal job at managing the club. The transfer policy has been bang on. It's absolutely been bang on over the past few years. Obviously, there was a bit of a rebuild. We had the transfer ban because of a few novelty actions of a few years back.
I mean, I want to touch on that. I've got a Chelsea fan here just for the pod. I do agree. And it's one thing that did annoy me. You can't have like 52 kids on loan that are going to be potential first team people. That is a bit outrageous when you saw like the amount of, you understand academies and I understand loaning people out. But yeah, that was a bit of a joke.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah. I suppose there are two ways you can look at that. You can look at that and say, it's all well and good these people, be it like these players playing for Chelsea, but the way they need to look at it, the way they would have been looking at it is they know that these kids have talent, that these players have talent. They're just not quite to the standard of the first team players at the moment. So they obviously send them away to get game time, but they know that we've seen it so many times. We've seen it with De Bruyne, we've seen it with Salah, where we've let the players go. I wasn't going
to mention it.
Exactly. Where you've let the players go and then they've gone on to be world beaters. They obviously don't want to see that. They don't want to see that again. So they want to keep them. They want to be extra sure. They want to send them out on loan, first get some first team experience elsewhere, and then assess it from there. But I do agree with you. There are so many players on loan, so many players that we've let go of that I've been sad to see go. De Bruyne was the biggest one. That's the one that hurt the most, because every Chelsea fan could see it at the time, could see how much talent that guy had, and then Mourinho just stopped playing him. He's got a bit of a record for doing that. We won't go into that too much. That's
a whole other episode. So that might be a really good episode for you and me as a Mourinho team, managed teams all talk about it. That'd be a spicy topic.
Absolutely.
Because also, again, not trying to get into it, you and me both still do like him, which I think lots of people wouldn't necessarily think.
I love the guy. I absolutely love the guy. I think he's incredible. Such a good coach. And anyone who watched that Tottenham documentary, how can you not like him? It's I think a lot of people as well, a lot of people that didn't like him have been turned around since then. I think he's an amazing man. Yeah. But going back to what we were saying, yeah, I really think the next 5 to 10 years, I would hope anyway, for more of the same. But I don't really see us going any other way at the moment. Obviously, I think spirits are high right now. But anything can happen in football, and things happen quickly in football.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get my hopes up because I know what we're like with managers. I absolutely adore Thomas Tuchel. I think he is incredible. He is one of the best tacticians in the world. That's the great thing about the Premier League. I think the 3 best managers currently are in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Obviously, Pep, Klopp, Tuchel, I think are the 3 best coaches in the world right now. What he's done with that side, obviously, like replacing Lampard was obviously vastly inexperienced. I think that came too early for him, the job. I absolutely love him, and obviously any Chelsea fan's going to love him.
Yeah.
Maybe just came a bit too early for him. I am grateful for some of the things that he's done. These young players that we've got,
100%.
Mason Mount is arguably, even with all these superstars on our side, arguably our most important player.
Yeah. Mount and James and a few other people that maybe wouldn't have got a look in if they weren't for Lampard yet.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, we've let go of Tomori, we've let go of Tammy. I'm unhappy about that, but they're now thriving in Italy and getting back into the England fold. So a lot of these players wouldn't have had a chance if it weren't for Lampard.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that. But yeah, touching on those players that we've got, the young players that we've got, the age of the squad, it's all positive. People are saying, well, what are you going to do when Thiago Silva retires because he's 37 now? Did you not see Trevor Chalobah recently? He's been phenomenal. Awesome. Even another debutant, Malang Sarr yesterday, his first start in the, and he was superb.
Yeah, and it's not that many people you have to replace. Like most of your squad age is actually pretty good, and it's just occasionally that you've got some extremes on Silva one end, but you'll fill them.
Yeah, exactly. Kai Havertz has the ability to be anything he wants to be if he kicks it in gear.
Yeah.
And he's only 21 years old. The age of the squad is something that's on our side. So for the next 5-10 years, all of those players could still be playing. Obviously not Thiago Silva. I mean, unless he's bionic, like
Ronaldo levels. He's just like, it's fine, all right.
But yeah, I would like to think more of the same.
I think that's a very smart answer. I think exactly that. I think you might see Liverpool and City and maybe United, getting to, maybe challenging for those leagues and stuff. So it might be switching, but I do think that on the trajectory you're on, it is more the same. And that's probably quite a comforting thing for a Chelsea fan, that you can see yourself comfortably in that top 4 for the foreseeable future. But as you said, it's just that managerial thing of hopefully nothing happens and it's either him or Abramovich going, nah, let's move it on.
Absolutely. That's my biggest worry, really, is that we have inevitably we're going to have a bad run of results. It's going to happen. And when it does, if we're too hasty with it, I think that'll be such a big mistake.
Yeah, you personally. Don't want to, and I know your views on this, you don't want to Conte again.
Oh, and that's another one. I loved him so much. It hurt so much to see him go, but he was a bit of a problematic manager anyway. He's been problematic everywhere he's been, but I loved him. The passion, the brand of football he played under him. That year we won the title. It was amazing. But I think the camps are kind of slightly different. Tuchel seems a lot less problematic. I say that he obviously caused problems at his last 2 clubs and was sacked because of them. He's admitted himself that he was wrong in those cases, and
maybe he's growing. Yeah, you don't know.
That's kind of what I'm hoping for, but I think keeping hold of him would be the best thing that we could do.
Yeah, and one thing that I do want to quickly mention, as people might not expect it from a rival fan and stuff, but there's one thing that I've always really admired about Chelsea. I haven't kept on it too heavily in the last year or two, so I could be completely wrong with the end of what I'm going to say, but the beginning bit. One of the things I always liked about Chelsea, because you're saying, Abramovich and your board and everything are doing really good work for Chelsea. One of the things I always admired about Chelsea the most is your player structure and your wage structure that Chelsea have had for a very long time, because especially from a United fan, like Alexis Sanchez, for example, broke our wage structure like ridiculous amounts. And then we've, then more players come in and you've had to give De Gea, he's going to, well, I'm important to one, I get in the same amount as him. And then you go up and up and up and up. But it probably has changed a bit now, because I even saw earlier, like the whole Rudiger situation, he's asking for ridiculous amounts, like Pogba levels of money. If it's true, might not be. That's speculation. Mm-hmm. But back in the day, it might not be the same now. Back in the day when you had Hazard, for example, Hazard was your top paid player on like 120 grand a week. He was top dog, but no one was ever going to touch him. So you had this amazing situation where you could keep your wage bill realistic and as it should be. And then nobody that came in, you're like, but are you better than Hazard? And they'd be like, okay, no. So you're never going to pay more. And me and Rich have talked about this for a long time. I think we mentioned it, and it'll probably be a whole episode as well. And maybe we'll get more people from different clubs to cut in and stuff. But we've said it's not only financial fair play rules, and I'm saying this as a United fan, there needs to be a financial fair play on wages. Put a wage bill structure in, and then you wouldn't have these ridiculous things coming in where it's like, if Haaland's coming in, he wants like even more, like he wanted, like I saw a figure, it's probably complete crap, but I saw a figure where it was like he wants 650k a week, and it's like, just because your buyout clause is lower than people would expect for you, like half of what it is, doesn't mean you can get that much money on wages. It's ridiculous.
That's the thing with him. Obviously, his supposed buyout clause, his supposed release clause, comes into play next year. I think it is, isn't it?
Well, I think you can start talking from January-ish, because it's like 75 or 78 or something. Isn't it?
Right. But on top of that, you've got those wages. And his agent is Mino Raiola, who is an absolute piece of shit.
and that's the thing. Like, I think United really want him, and they've said that, and it does have the link with Ollie. If Ollie's still there at the time, different matter. But like, there's potential that he wants to play with Ronaldo, and then he'll be the starting person. It's like, go to anyone. But it's like, one, those wages are ridiculous, but two, dealing with Raiola again, it's just like, just causes headaches. And it's like, I think he wants like a 20 million agent fee or something for him as well.
Yeah, I'm sure it was like 40 million. I think it was double that. I think it's 40 million pounds he wants in agent fees. It's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. So whoever buys him is going to have to shell out a lot of money, a lot of money.
And that's like, it might look okay from a fan perspective of 78 million from the start, but then you're looking at hundreds of millions from wages and all that stuff.
100%.
Absolutely ridiculous.
But going back to what you were saying about the Chelsea wage structure, I think things have changed recently.
Yeah, I don't think it's any more. Like, I'm just saying, back in the day, I think but I don't think it's as bad as United or like someone like that. Anyway.
No, but I think the likes of Havertz and Lukaku are on a lot of money. I think Lukaku is probably our highest earner at the moment. We recently, over the past couple of seasons, Kante signed a new deal, and he's on a lot of money now. But I think that's more his agent than him, because he's just the loveliest man in the world. Still drives a Mini.
And then smiling and just, being polite.
But I think things have changed recently. I think Lukaku and Havertz, I think it's going to have to,
because of the way unfortunately, United is one of the people that has pushed us in this direction. Like, you have to now with City and everyone like that. They're not only are you competing for the top dollar in terms of bringing players in, but also in terms of wage structure, you're going to have to start paying some bigger bucks if you're going to start. Like, Newcastle will find this very much out quickly, that they might be trying to bring in people from other clubs, like maybe more of the forgotten about BPL players or people from overseas and stuff, but to get them to then come from potentially like a Manchester or a London club or anything like that to Newcastle, no offense to anyone from Newcastle, but that's going to be a harder sell to people, especially like foreign overseas players, than the glitz of like, I want to live in London or whatever, but you're going to have to pay them handsomely for that, and especially those first people that take the first leap. Hypothetically, if it's a Sterling, don't think it will be, but if it was someone like that, you're going to have to pay them a huge amount of money to take that first leap to get that project rolling. So it's an interesting one.
Yeah, for sure.
But so that's just one thing I said. I knew it probably wouldn't be the same thing, but I just thought, this show is very much about positives and negative where it's due, and I can say it from a other fan perspective that is something I always admired about the board at that time. They were very much sticking to their guns and keeping their club in order, and that's something to be very proud of from a Chelsea fan and from the club perspective. I mean, the last kind of thing I've got, it's kind of in the same the same question. It's two questions, but it's the same thing. So I'll just kind of chuck it out there and you can go nuts on what you want. So the two questions kind of are, is there anything you don't like about your club? Would be like the first half of it. And I've got like owners, fans, managers, anything like that. Yeah, you've talked about getting rid of managers and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll kind of, you might want to do that in a more negative light, potentially. I want to hear both sides, but just framing it. And then the second part is there anything you want to say to your fellow Chelsea fans out there? So it's kind of two parts in one, but it's kind of an open forum for you to go, this is stuff I don't, because every fan has stuff they don't like about their club, and they don't like about their fan base. They don't like about anything. So it's a chance for you to say it how it is from your perspective. Some other Chelsea fans might not agree with you on certain points, but that's the point. They can come on and defend themselves and share that at times as well. But it's just an open thing for you now to just tell us about Chelsea in that way.
Absolutely. Okay. We've already touched on the managerial structure and the amount of managers that we've binned off over the years, wrongly or rightly so. I'm not going to say too much about that. That would have been one of the negatives over recent years for sure. But I would hope that we're turning a corner now. But then again, we fought that with Conte, Ancelotti. Thought we were turning a corner with those guys, and especially Lampard as well, like the biggest legend we've ever had, realistically. And he suffered the same fate. At the time, I would have said that was a bad decision from the board, but realistically, I know that we'd be nowhere near where we are now.
You wouldn't have won a Champions League.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We'd be nowhere near where we are now. And I'm, as I said, I'm grateful for what he did for us. I just think it came a bit too early for him. So we'll get on from that. But in terms of fan base, I would personally like the fan base to be way less reactionary than they are, because I don't know what it's like with United. Well, probably similar, because it's such a followed club. A large part of the fan base are so fickle, and so reactionary. So one game, Lukaku, for example, Lukaku's already getting hate from some Chelsea fans because he hasn't scored for like 3 games.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I know it's like 5 games all competitions, but realistically, it's not that big a deal. Like if you know the sort of character he is, and you've seen what he's done over the past couple of years, his career's just gone like that. You've got nothing to worry about. Like Ronaldo's not scored for a few weeks for you. I'm sure you've got nothing to worry about.
Precisely.
Exactly. I just hate that sort of narrative around players where a couple bad games, they go from being up here to shit now. I hate it. Absolutely hate it. Another thing that I hated from my time going to games when Sarri was in charge, that is the most hostile atmosphere I've ever experienced among Chelsea fans. Like Chelsea fans versus Chelsea fans, because you had Chelsea fans who could see what Sarri was doing and really liked it, and liked the way of playing. You had others that really didn't, and those that didn't wouldn't just jump on Sarri, they'd jump on Jorginho as well, because they saw him as Sarri's son.
Package deal, yeah.
Right, and Jorginho had a bit of a difficult time in his first season, and he would tell you that himself. Like some of our fans would boo him at the games. Like, I don't care who it is. I don't care what they've done, within reason, obviously. I don't care what they've done on the pitch.
Yeah.
I don't care how bad the performance has been. You just don't do that. You just don't boo your own players. You just get behind your players. Jorginho is one. I guess it's kind of a success story, because he went from being booed pretty much every game to having his own chant and the fans sing his name. And I think it really sort of capped off when we won the Champions League, because he was interviewed, I think, for Italian TV, and he was crying. He was saying, after everything that I went through here, criticism after criticism or whether that be from fans or from pundits or from managers or whatever, now to this, and he was so integral to us winning it. And then went on to have a storming tournament with Italy at the Euros.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think, I think that's probably something I would say to fellow Chelsea fans: be a little less reactionary.
Yeah.
Things, even if you've lost a couple of games on the trot, things aren't as bad as you think they are. Because a win can next week completely changes how you feel. And I know it's difficult because obviously losing's horrible. Any football fan would tell you nobody likes losing. It is awful. It's one of the worst feelings in the world. But I mean, it's what football's about. No one's going to win every single week. Someone might have an off week. So a few players that you like might not play so well.
Yeah, and and in that, just interrupt as well. Like I could talk about United because it's exactly the same. And I can think of a million players off the top of my head and one very specifically that is exactly the same. But it's like the thing I never get is, right, so you're not having to say, I always try to think if that person put it in their shoes, so they've whatever they do for a job, regardless, they had a bad week and not done something good. Can you imagine the whole office, their boss, all the news presenters, newspapers and everything would be like, you're shit, we don't like you, leave your job, we don't want you, get him fired.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine how you'd feel for a week? And then they have to then get back on the pitch to then give 110%. And some people do thrive off that. Ronaldo thrives off being booed. He loves playing the villain and then breaking hearts and scoring that last minute goal because he wants to do nothing more than that because he's a serial winner and he'll do anything it takes. But like, it does put yourself in someone's shoes and then be like, why are you doing it? And 90% of them, if you think if you think about it, they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm being a bit of a dick. But yeah, it's mental.
That's exactly it. And then they'll counter it with like, oh yeah, but he gets paid this much money.
You could throw rolling pins at me on a pitch all day for that amount of money, and it's just like, yeah, but it's not how the world works. Like,
no, it's not. It's so irrelevant to the point that they're trying to make. Realistically, they just don't. People that do that don't understand how to manage their emotions and manage what they're feeling and manage that it's okay to be upset when your team loses, but you don't have to take out on this player because there's always a scapegoat. Pogba, I'm sure that's the player you were alluding to a minute ago.
It actually wasn't, but that's a good point.
Was it not?
No, it's Fred at the moment. Fred gets crucified every single week. So
yeah, I mean, yeah. If you're gonna lose, if you lose, it's Fred's fault.
But as I've again, sorry to interrupt, but it's the same thing. It's a very apt thing you said about Jorginho as well. I can see some games 100% like that. A game against Everton, like he had 2 bites to take that guy down, should have done a professional foul. So that goal was Fred's fault. Okay, it is on. A goal is always going to be somebody's fault, but the complete Fred out, like death threats, don't play for us, all this kind of ridiculous nonsense. I can also see with the squad that we have and the role that he's trying to fill, I can see I'm one of the people that would be on the opposite side as some of the Sarri crazy fans that you were saying about. Like, I can see what he's trying to bring and the energy that Fred brings, the chasing. He's like a little terrier, he just doesn't stop. And like this, he does it for Brazil and stuff, and he, was absolutely fantastic. So I see the process. If it doesn't always work, but some people it's just blind, like, no, just get him out, hate it, and it's just so frustrating.
Yeah, I agree. I just there's always that one scapegoat at a club. For a while for Chelsea, it was Mason Mount. Because I guess it's kind of similar to Sarri and Jorginho, because it's like, oh, Mason Mount, Frank Lampard's son. But it can't be Frank Lampard's son because he starts every important game for England. Gareth Southgate starts him. And Thomas Tuchel has now been one of the most important players under his reign as well. So if 3 different coaches absolutely love him, but a few fans that go to games or that don't go to games or whatever, a few fans that watch, think they know better and think, oh, he's not good enough to be starting. Why is he starting? Well, clearly is. These guys know more than you do. And
clearly, like, for anyone out there who might be watching this as a Chelsea fan or non-Chelsea fan and is disagreeing with that, I'm a United fan. Mason Mount's a fantastic football player. But also, I'd also like to make the point of lots of Chelsea players, look at who they're pushing, especially for the England team, this is relevant to, sorry, look at who they're pushing out of the team to play. Like, when there's lots of, especially my club over the summer, lots of United players were not playing in that squad, weren't called up in the squad for certain points, weren't done, being pushed out. Clearly, there's something about them. So you have to take that. And, obviously, there's a double side to the argument because you'd be like, well, maybe United players should have played here then everywhere. But like, for anyone that's been like, Mason Mount isn't good, the proof is there if all these managers are saying it. And it is just because it's popular to, and I think this is part of it. If it's popular to have a go at someone, or if it's popular to jump on that, or social media saying it, then it must be true. Then it forms people's opinions. Maybe watch the games and make your own opinion. And if you've made the opinion of you hate them and you want them at your club, keep it to yourself.
Yeah, exactly that. And that's a good point you made. I mean, he kept Jack Grealish and Phil Foden out of that side at the Euros. And I'm under no illusions. Jack Grealish and Phil Foden are better footballers than Mason Mount is in terms of ability, but he brings something else that those two don't bring. Right? I think Phil Foden could be the best player in the world.
Honestly,
eventually, I think he is incredible.
This is the thing, right? And I'm going to obviously have a United angle as well, but it's part of the story, right? So, really quick tangent. I have never said that Phil Foden's bad, and I've always been like, Phil Foden is the gem that City have, right? And obviously that hurts me to say because I don't like to admit they have good football players. But him and Mason Greenwood are different class, and they are they are going to be the people coming up and stuff. Both of them are phenomenal and can be world class in their own right. So
yeah. They can be whatever they want to be. The pair of them, generational talents. Yeah. They are superb.
100%. But yeah, so I mean, it's a really good point, and I think most people that we have on here is going to be a part of that. I think it's important for fans to address their own fans and say these kind of things and then have a unified message on it, because maybe it will become a bit different if you're a Chelsea fan listening to this and you're seeing a fellow Chelsea fan say, maybe you should think about your actions a little bit more and stuff on terms of that. And I think most people are just generally getting sick of it, and it's going to become a thing. I think every person's going to be like social media or newspapers or whatever it's going to be like. It's all there to stir the pot, and it's there to get people angry, and it's there to sell more stuff and be in people's faces. Yeah. And it's not helping anyone. Is there anything, I mean, if you've got anything more negative, obviously go on, but is there anything positive like you want to say about your fellow Chelsea fans or?
Yeah, actually, I think for a long time there was this big stigma around Chelsea fans. And I know there have been a lot of incidents that we've seen in the news, and people have probably experienced as well, is that a large portion of the fan base were deemed racist. I know, don't get me wrong, I have seen this. I've seen incidents at games before. I've seen incidents whether I've been in a pub or from old family members. Like, it's just one of those things. I think the problem is there. But I will say it's not a Chelsea-centric problem. It's clearly a societal problem.
Yeah,
exactly. It's exactly that. But what I will say positively about this, obviously that sounds wrong to say now, but every game I've been to over the past 3-4 years, the fans have been incredible in terms of stamping out racism. Or even not even just at games, whether you see it online, or you're going to get troubles. Of course, you're going to get people hiding behind football avatars and, you know, abusing players for no good reason. But the sort of level of unity I've seen around it, and the level of support for people of colour at football games, it's such a diverse place now, and I think that's probably, something that a lot of Chelsea fans from my generation, from generations younger than me, can look at with pride, because we are changing the course of the fan structure of football games, and I think that's so important. And obviously not just racism, but of course LGBTQ communities as well. I think it's such an important thing that we touch on. I would like to say that really. Obviously, I think there are a lot of problems with the old guard fans at many clubs. But I know Chelsea were ones that were deemed notorious for it, because you'd see it in the news here and there and stuff. And I'm not trying to get away from that fact. I just don't think you can be racist because of the club you support. I think you're racist because of your upbringing, and you're racist because of what was around you at the time. So, but I think the course of that is changing.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good message to put out, because yes, not just your club, lots of clubs have got bad connotations with stuff like that, with racism or homophobia or fighting, or lots of different stuff you can put to all sorts of clubs, and they're kind of known for it. I could think instantly a club pops to your head when you think about that stuff, but it's important to, you know, I touched on this last week, and I'll touch on it pretty much every time this stuff gets brought up. A few points. One, the reason this channel is called Community FC is, again, I've said it lots of times, it's because football's inclusive and it's for everyone, no matter what. So anything that's going against any person, any, you know, whatever, it's not okay. Like, football is for everyone, a unified thing. Two, it's really nice to see that people are standing up against their fellow fans, and it's an educational piece is the term I always use, because it's especially with the old guard or older generations, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't mean it's okay, but what you can do is just try to educate, and that's exactly what it sounds to be like. At the bridge, they're trying to educate people more, and they're stamping this out and stuff, and it's something you want to see. But yeah, you can't just label, Chelsea fans are racist. Absolutely not. They're 100% every club. There will be some racist fans. It could be any club. Doesn't matter what club you support. But you can't go they're a racist club, because that's not true, and that's just not something that we should be. Again, you're putting labels on people and sticking negative stigmas to them in that sense. And so actually, by doing that, you'd also be part of the problem, promoting that Chelsea fans are racist, because even if that person you could be saying that against who could be racist, you're also going to make them more angry and potentially say a racial slur by trying to label them as a racist or anything like that. So again, it's an educational piece of, obviously let's stamp out racism. Let's keep educating, keeping that good message up. But let's also not throw things around. And also a point on this, I'm trying not to touch on it too much, but it's something that was kind of in the news and stuff again recently, and it's something certain clubs and certain fans, they have nicknames for their fans. Now, I'm not going to say what it is, but Chelsea fans have always been called a certain something, and it's a unanimous thing. If you've been around the football scene for a while, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's also stuff like that people need to be careful of, because there's a very homophobic slant that is what people call lots of Chelsea fans, and that is also something that, just like racism, needs to be stamped out. And it's if you've got a problem with someone's club, there's a whole different thing between banter about ribbing your mate because you lost at the weekend. We had a little bit of football chat on my disastrous weekend for football, but it's having a laugh and talking about your friends, and it's not using terminology or anything like that. It's just like, your team lost, haha, you're rubbish, is this player even good, but it's that thing there. I don't know if you want to touch on that at all.
I do actually. I'm kind of glad you mentioned that, because I think it wasn't actually a Chelsea game. It was a few weeks back, Liverpool versus Norwich, I believe. Billy Gilmore is on loan at Norwich.
Yeah, that was
currently.
the story.
And obviously, select Liverpool fans were singing the song. Obviously, I won't recite it now, but we're singing the song that you were referring to at Billy Gilmore. And it was fellow Liverpool fans. It was other Liverpool fans that heard it, spotted it, and pointed them out to the stewards and stuff, which is incredible. That's what you need to be doing. That's amazing. That's how you make it inclusive for everybody, and how you make your club better. I think it's no coincidence that there are no openly gay footballers in the Premier League, and why, realistically, why would they want to come out and let people know if that's the treatment they're going to get? Is absolutely. And on that, again, not affiliated in any way, I'd love to be. Rio Ferdinand talking about his podcast or his YouTube channel, Vibe at 5. There's actually an episode on this, literally this last week just gone, and they have 2 openly gay footballers in the lower leagues, and they are literally, it's really interesting. So if anyone's interested in that, go listen to that, because it touches on all these points and why people at high levels of the game, like they're saying that clearly there's probably statistically going to be, and they know of certain people at different leagues who are gay, but they'd never come out because of X, Y, and Z. And it's stuff like that. But you touched on a really good point there. The Liverpool fans, after they had their homophobic and racist chants before, and there was a big Klopp interview and all this kind of stuff, and you've got to root it out your own club yourself, and that's exactly the point. And they're doing a really good service for everyone by doing that and cleaning it up. And it's just not okay, whether that's at any level, like, chants or whatever it is. So absolutely, that's a really good point to touch on. I mean, do you have anything else you want to touch on? It could be to fellow fans or anything about your club that you just want to talk about that you think you want to put out there in this episode to represent Chelsea. No, to be honest, I think that's a nice place to leave it. Really, that I kind of wanted to leave it on a good note. Of course, there's still a big problem. There's still a lot that we need to do, but as I said, I think it is changing slowly. It's not going to be an overnight process. Obviously, there are a lot of small-minded people that still attend football games and still are interested in football. So it's going to be a long old road. But obviously, but we're talking about these topics in football. They're worldwide issues. They're societal issues that we need to stamp out outside of football first. So, yeah, that's kind of all I had to say, really. I don't think there's anything more important to touch on than that.
No, perfect. I mean, I'm not trying to overshadow that at all, because I think you're absolutely right. All I do is on this last little bit, I'm just going to give props to be a bit humble in terms of a non-biased thing as a football channel. It's just also give props where props is due. Chelsea are doing fantastic at the moment this season. I think you've got a really good squad, a really good manager. The synergy is there, and you've got some absolute gems like Thiago Silva and Rudiger at the back really stepping up for you. You know, obviously you've got lots of players, especially Lukaku and people like that, who I think are going to do absolute bits for you. And I think Tuchel, as you said, is doing absolute work for Chelsea. Mm-hmm. So props to where you are. Lots of people, whether they are correct or not, are kind of putting you in that title race. I think that it could be in that conversation for sure. Hopefully don't get any injuries that impact that, and that's going to be the main thing. But well done Chelsea for now. Let's see what you can do, mm-hmm. and let's carry on from there. But yeah, I think that's really it. So that's going to be the My Club episode 2, where we've talked about Chelsea. And I just want to say thank you very much, Jamie, for coming on.
Pleasure was all mine, man. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much for having me.
It's been great. Well, absolutely. And we'll hopefully have you on very soon for lots of other ones. I want to talk to you. I've got lots of stuff in mind. Jamie currently plays football, so I want to talk to him about that and all that kind of fun stuff. But if you have liked the content that you've seen today, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, give us a like, comment down below, subscribe to the channel. And if you want to get notifications, hit that notification bell ding dong at the top, because then you'll be notified every time that we go live, so you won't miss out on any content. And yeah, big thanks for watching, really. So thank you all, and let's enjoy some football.